It all began the day Clash's secretary flipped out. Victoria, Vic to her friends, had been working for Clash for about 4 months, forwarding calls and sorting paperwork when Clash or his assistant were unable to do so. They had met during a case and had immediately hit it off. The assistant in question, in fact, was surprised that they had yet to go on a date. The romantic tension was that thick. However, both Clash and Victoria were consistent in their insistence that they were uninterested in each other. Victoria's excuse was that she was simply uninterested in that sort of intimacy. Clash's excuse was that he was a robot detective. Clash would always break out the same tired lines.
Remember how dangerous our case together on the cruise ship was, assistant of mine? Or the case where the robotic barista was murdered? The case where I met Vic? You really think I can get involved with someone in this line of dangerous work? Besides, I'm not interested in that sort of contact. And not only that, Vic deserves better than me.
The assistant, of course, would smile and nod, due to recognizing denial on sight. Because the assistant would see the glances, the curious gazes, the gentle hand touches. Yes, the romantic tension was, as the assistant knew all along, that thick. It was just a matter of getting them to see it. Vic's freakout ended up being that catalyst needed, although the outcome was not at all what the assistant had expected. Vic had been organizing Clash's books when she dropped one. 2 more books followed soon after. Vic then let out a blood-curdling screech and kicked the bookshelf, startling both Clash and the assistant. Clash's one-eyed head whirled around in terror.
Vic, are you hurt?
No, I'm fine, Vic shouted back, slumping to the ground with tears in her eyes. Clash was quick to her side.
No, there is definitely something wrong. What's up?
Vic put her head in her hands. It's so embarrassing. Try us, the assistant remarked. Vic sighed, wiping the tears from her eyes. Well, she stammered, her cheeks blushing wildly. Remember when I told you that I wasn't interested in, intimacy? The assistant shrugged. You're usually not interested, except in rare cases. Vic nodded. Yeah, this is that rare case. Despite his solitary eye and expressionless face, Clash looked confused.
I don't understand.
Vic continued. Usually I don't think about going at it at all. But sometimes I get so desperate, to put it politely. I call them needy spells. They usually last a few months, and I'm just so frustrated during them. I just need it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does,
Clash said, fidgeting with the collar of his shirt awkwardly. The assistant asked, why not find someone and burn that energy off? Vic laughed. Because there ain't a guy alive who wants me. Believe me, I've looked. I've been looking since high school. I'm 31 now, and still no one wants me. She groaned again. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not even that picky. There's not a lot of guys I wouldn't take. The assistant was very surprised at what Clash said next.
How about me?
Vic was stunned. She eventually said, What do you mean? I thought you weren't interested in that sort of thing at all. Clash shrugged.
Not in the way humans are, no. But as a detective, I need to understand human psychology. Desire, sexual desire, is a part of that. As a robot, that sort of knowledge doesn't come instinctually to me. I'd need to learn it, study it.
The assistant's jaw dropped. You're offering yourself up as a research project? Vic laughed again, more gently this time. That sounds like Clash, all right.
No, I'm serious.
Clash defended himself.
The concept of why a human would cause a crime in the heat of passion is beyond me and my programming. If I could learn why the heat of passion is so desirable, then I could help clients and interrogate suspects in those cases more efficiently.
Clash patted Vic's head.
That said, if it would be too strange for you, what, with me being a robot and all?
Vic touched Clash's hand in turn. To be honest, I think I trust you a lot more than a human guy at this point. You won't make it weird.
Any weirder than this being a research project, that is.
Clash snarked. The assistant was still in awe that this conversation was actually unfolding and could not work up anything to say.
There is just one problem,
Clash admitted. Vic caught on pretty quickly. You were built for crime investigation, not passion, right?
Yes,
Clash confessed, spreading his arms wide.
I am, to put it politely, without a set.
That's what you're calling it, a set? The assistant asked, finally able to form some sort of a sentence.
Everything else sounds so crude to me.
I've heard you say both dick and balls before.
Yes, as descriptors. You know, as in that guy had some balls to try and manipulate me. Or that robotic waiter over there is a dick. That's different.
You know, I could make you a set, Vic interrupted. Clash turned back towards her.
Really?
Vic nodded. Don't forget, I have a lot of hands-on engineering experience. The assistant wanted to say, oh, I bet you do, but decided that such a joke may not have been appropriate at that time. I can make you something, your own custom set. Maybe I can stick it to some magnets so that you can easily detach it when you're not using it. It won't get in the way of your work. That is such a bizarre concept, the assistant admitted. A removable magnetic set.
But clever.
Clash admitted, standing up.
It could be an interesting endeavor. Okay, Victoria. If it will help you through this needy spell, I offer myself as a virgin sacrifice.
Both Vic and the assistant laughed at that. Clash was glad they found his self-emasculation funny. He held a hand out to Vic and pulled her to her feet. She stumbled slightly, and he caught her. Her face was inches away from his optic. We're actually gonna do this, aren't we? She asked, smiling shyly. Clash nodded.
If you'll have me.
She hugged him, suddenly and tightly. If you won't let me go. Clash hugged her back.
No matter what happens.
The assistant suppressed a squeal of delight at watching the ship set sail, then snuck past the embraced pair to pick up the fallen books. Vic got started on the set almost immediately after her shift. She purchased her planned materials for the undertaking. She bought the strange collection of synthetic material, magnets, sensors, and more without elaboration to the confused cashier. She knew she wanted the set to have proper reactions and sensors. She didn't want to use Clash as a toy or common sex bot. She wanted him to feel. And since his goal was to learn about passion firsthand, she assumed he wanted that as well. First, she had to decide on the overall size of the set. Not too big, not too small. Just right in the middle. A good average size. Not to imply that Cash was average, of course. Just that he would probably prefer something neither too flashy or too dinky. A slice of normalcy for a unique robot. So she settled on the medium set. Next, she had to decide on the general dimensions. Would she place a greater emphasis on length or girth? Vic decided that Clash would appreciate girth over length. He just seemed like the type. Once the size and dimensions were decided on, it was just a matter of constructing it. Modeling the set and attaching it to the magnet was one thing. Programming in the sensors was another. It took several days of testing to get the sensors to fire properly. Either they would be too sensitive or not sensitive enough. But Vic was stubborn and was eventually able to simulate what she thought would be a good balance for Clash. She just needed him to test it out. Clash walked her back to her apartment one evening. He held her hand the entire way. She was not sure if it was out of excitement, out of nervousness, or out of romantic intention. Whatever it was, she certainly was not about to complain. When they got back to the apartment, she invited Clash to get comfortable as she drew the curtains. She then went into her bedroom to retrieve the set. She also decided, what the hell? She'd slip into a cute nightie just for him. When she returned to the living room, set in hand, she was startled to see Clash standing in the middle of the room without his clothes, coat, or hat on.
Figured I'd just get it over with,
Clash said.
How do I look?
Vic was too busy taking him in to answer. She'd never seen him without his trademark outfit before. His metal frame was covered in small cuts and dents from past adventures. His lean build was perfectly postured. He looked so different, strong, mechanical. Any other woman might have changed her mind at this reminder that the target of her affection was a machine. An emotional, comical, soulful machine. But a machine nonetheless. Vic, however, was not like any other woman. If anything, Vic was even more encouraged by the sight. "You look great," Vic answered.
Oh, why thank you. You look quite beautiful yourself. You know, I think this is the first time I've seen you in a dress.
"But it's not a dress. It's just a sheer nightgown."
Same thing, different name. It fits you in a most lovely way, whatever it is.
Vic was blushing furiously now. "Thanks." Clash pointed to the device in her hands.
So, that's it. The set you've made for me.
"Yeah, here, let's get it on." The magnet worked perfectly, and the set held fast. The medium set blended perfectly with his build. Not too much, not too little, just as Vic has planned. Not only that, but the choice to go with the girth over length blended with both his size and his build to create a set as unique as he was. Clash looked down at his set.
Very well made,
he said.
Nice detail work. Great job, Vic.
There was a pause. Clash looked back at Vic, clearing his throat when he noticed the angle of Vic's gaze.
So, now what?
"Oh, you can just go ahead and test it out."
Test it.
"Yeah," Vic clarified with a rapid shake of her fist. "Test it." So Clash tested it. Clash had barely taken a hold of his set before he was reacting to it. Vic was confused. She had taken great care not to make the set overly sensitive, and yet Clash was shaking at the barest touch. Then she realized this was a brand new sensation to him. He didn't even have the benefit of human instincts in regards to that area. No matter how strong or weak the sensors were, they would be powerful to him. "Clash, maybe you should sit down," Vic said, gesturing to the couch. Clash took a seat, not letting go of himself as he did.
This is something, Vic, I've barely started and it's overwhelming.
"Do you want to stop?" Vic asked, concerned.
Absolutely not.
He purred. He kept playing with himself, slowly but steadily picking up speed. He inadvertently kept emitting glitchy outbursts through his vocal speaker. His thighs moved and twitched from his own pleasure. But Vic noticed that he didn't know where to look. He kept changing his gaze from the floor to the wall and back again. She pointed his head down. "You like how I made it? Then you keep your gaze on it," she purred, holding his head. Clash gasped, picking up his pace. He looked at the set and admired Vic's construction. The sensors in the set were firing off intensely, racking his entire body with pleasing passion. And then Clash came undone. With a gasping snarl,
God.
Clash arched his back. The set unfortunately lacked the traditional method for finishing. That was beyond Vic's ability. It did, however, vibrate excitedly, a visual sign that Clash had finished. And finish he did, excitedly, loudly, and passionately. Clash settled into the couch, finally letting go of the set. He panted with exertion, an interesting reaction due to his lack of lungs. Vic touched his shoulder. "Well?" He nodded at her.
Great A job. Worked perfectly. Would hire you to build me one again.
"I'll make you a whole set of sets," she responded. Clash tried to get into a more comfortable position.
I almost understand. That screaming pleasure, I can see how it could be addicting.
He looked at his hand.
But I also feel filthy, like I did something terrible. But it felt so wonderful.
Vic hugged him. "That's normal. That's why we need someone to stay by us, to let us know we did wonderful." Clash hugged her back, his hand on her lower back.
Have I ever told you how glad I am that I met you?
Vic smiled at him. "At least 5 times, not counting just then."
Well, that's 6 then.
Clash responded, touching her chin tenderly. Vic slid into his lap. "So, are you completely finished? Do you need a rest?"
I'm a robot. Not only that, I'm a robot originally built to chase criminals down.
I never needed rest.
He held her ever closer. If bringing himself to climax was an amazing feeling, bringing Vic there was far more astounding. But it was not the sensations, honestly. For Clash, it was the closeness. It was watching her face, feeling her body, touching her everywhere, knowing her intimately. They made mistakes. They were clumsy. But they were enjoying each other in a way that no other had known or would know them. And after they had spent each other's passion, as she lay on his chest, his hand gently through her hair, and he felt her heartbeat and she felt his warmth, they never wanted to part.